Okay, so we've talked about what exactly lights are and what they are technically and what they're capable of doing. So I'm going to take you through 3 different lighting setups. First, being an interview lighting setup. This is the basis for everything. This is going to be a basic interview lighting setup that you should be able to grasp, walk into any interview, and be able to set up very quickly, and will get you through almost anything. 2, I'm going to take you through sort of a romantic, warm, narrative sort of setting where it'll be kind of narrative-y and it'll be like a nice, like just natural place in like an evening sort of room. And then 3, I'm going to put you in like a very scary, dark, contrasty, moody kind of feeling light. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have Phil come in here in a second. I'm going to have him sit down. I'm going to explain the situation, light him up. You're going to see me kind of running around doing light. I'll stop, I'll explain what I did, show you the different lights, and then we'll do the next one and do the next one. So the first thing I would do is I would come in here and I would look at this room and I would set the white balance to what we're going to do. I'm going to use tungsten balance in here. I'm probably going to turn off these gross fluorescent lights that you can see right now and just figure out what to do next. So first we're going to set up the lights. You'll see me go dark and then you'll see me start to turn lights on in our little time lapse and we'll just go from there. So you ready, Phil?
Yep. Let's do it.
So this is what I would use for a 3-point lighting system, a basic interview here on Phil. Now I do have one little light back there, so technically it's 4 lights, but you can kind of see the difference between what this room used to be like and what this room looks like now. So I just want to run with you really quick with what I did. So what I did here was I might have my assistant over here turn off this light. This is a fill light. Get it? Fill light. F-I-L-L. So if you just push the button to turn it off, you can see that all it really is just filling in the shadows here from our key light. I started with the key light. So let's turn this one off. So you can see this is going to be really where our main light is coming from, and this is what we call the key light. So turn the key light on. So he's lit, right? But now you can see over here on Phil's right side, it's a little shady and it's a little more menacing than we want it to be. So what we're going to do is turn on our fill light. Our fill light is filling in, for Phil, the shade on this side, so it's a little more even. Typically that light is usually half a stop to 2 stops less than the stops coming from this light. So we got our key, we got our fill. Now let's look at the backlight. You can see my shadow in it right now, and you can see the light itself in the wide shot here. But in our normal shot, let's turn it off and on. Here's off, on, and you can see how it's giving him just a little bit of an edge when it's on, and it's separating it from the background. So keep it on and off, on and off, on and off. And you see the really difference. The thing I like about the backlights is that it's able to separate them from the background depending on what your background is, and it just adds a nice little dynamic pop to the subject. You can see I did add one light over here, and I can unplug it and plug it in. It's more of an accent light for the background because we're shooting in such a crappy background. But you can see if I take it out, it's just plain back there, and it's just blank and shadowy. By adding this, adds a little bit more dimension with that kind of accent light. So it's nice to kind of have more than 3 lights, but you can get away with just 3 lights if you need them. You never know what situation you're in an interview. Okay, so let's move on to a little bit more romantic, warm, nice, kind of movie lighting. So here we have a more warmer, natural kind of movie lighting here we got going on Phil. It's a little bit different than the interview lighting, although not totally dramatically different. What I did was I moved the key light around over to here, so now you have this nice key light coming from the side. I dimmed it down a little bit because our lights that we have are dimmable. I then took our Phil light and actually pointed it down in front of Phil, so it's bouncing a little bit off the floor there, and I lowered the intensity so it's not as intense. You can see there's a little bit of shadow and sound in the center of his face. And then I took our backlight and I moved it over here, and I'm actually bouncing off the wall here, which is a little white. There's a white door, and I'm bouncing the light off the wall. You remember I talked about earlier, lights can either be shot directly at, or they can be bounced, or they can be diffused. This one is actually able to be bounced, and it kind of has a nice bounce. I didn't mention earlier that our key lights and fill lights are diffused with our soft boxes that I had talked about before, which kind of makes a softer light. I then adjusted the backlight here that you can see, not a backlight, but the accent light in the back to kind of close down, and I lowered the intensity, and I changed the color temperature just a little bit because I can, and that makes it look a little bit more interesting. The key here is that we make this look like a nice, warm, natural scene, like he's in the evening at some room, he's just hanging out, as opposed to full-blown lit interview. It's not accented on him or anything, it's just a natural, nice-looking shot based on what this ugly room used to look like. So let's move on to something a little bit more dramatic. I'm gonna light Phil as if he's about to murder somebody. Basically, I wanna make him look really menacing, dark, horror, scary. I'm gonna try a couple different things out. You can see that this narrative stuff takes me a little bit longer to light than the interview. The interview stuff's very cookie cutter, very key light, fill light, backlight, whereas this stuff I kinda have to play around, and it really is dependent on the structure and the place you're at. So here we go. Okay, so here's my menacing Phil look. So really, we gotten some more contrast, more scary, a little more dynamic as far as contrast really more than anything. So I took the key and it's over here now. There's no Phil over here. I mean, there's Phil, but there's no fill light over here. So you can see that there's just a nice dark shape on the right side. I added a really intense backlight. You can see if I block it, what it's doing. See in the wide shot of us that I'm talking to, you can kind of see it down here below, right here. And in the closer shot, it's really just covering and putting a ring around Phil's head right here. As I move my hands through it, you can kind of probably see what it's doing. The big thing about that is I like the ring that it pops him out from the dark background. It's a little more scary. This is a little more contrast. You can see the contrast affects this mood of him just being scary and upset, like he's about to murder somebody. And you can see the effect right here. If I take our key light and I just dim it down and up, you can totally see what it's doing. So this is nothing. And now you can see that the backlight is just taking care of everything. A little more dark, you can't even see the detail in his face as much, but as I pull this up and start to dim up, you can see the different attitude of it. This is really bright, this is probably about where I had it, so it's a little more menacing, a little more contrasty. Alternatively, I did set up a different light you may have seen in the time lapse. We turn this down and pan it off, and I turn on my lower front light. Also, another way to look a little bit more menacing, more scary, it's like having that flashlight at dinner where you only see like the head. And if we turned off the backlight, you can see all we see is Phil just right there in his face and kind of intense. Also, another way to look a little bit more menacing, more scary, it's like having that flashlight at dinner where you only see like the head. And if we turned off the backlight, you can see all we see is Phil just right there in his face and kind of intense. So those are just some really quick examples of how we can change light and use light to affect the scene that we're doing. Using the tools that we have here, there is infinite ways to light a scene. And depending on what you're trying to say and what you're doing and what your composition is, there's a million different ways. Those to me are some very structurally based ways to light things, and if you kind of use that as like your template or a way to start to look at things, you really need to develop your own style of how to light and what you can do to really use the tools that you have to make your story come alive.